guys are great. I love hearing the fellowship. Listen, if you're wondering, there's one word that I'm focusing on for 2019. This is the truth. And until we get deeper into 2019, maybe there's more words. I don't know. But the first word that I'm focusing on is community. That's it. Community. We are a family, people, which means that we need to listen. I'll tell you one thing, okay, before I say what we need. Strong words, but I'll tell you one thing. I am from Toronto area, Ontario, Canada. It's just easier to say Toronto. And most of my family is still in Canada. I don't really get to see them all that often. I think I've visited Canada twice in the last decade, just because of reality of airfare travel and schedules and things of that nature. Y'all are my family. Appreciate it. Y'all are. You're my family. Well, I take that very seriously because I deeply, deeply love my family. But there's a scripture that says, and you know, we're still in North America and it's very easy to travel and things of that nature. But if you give up all these different things, including family, for me, there will be reward attached to it. And for the sake of the gospel, we have just run, both Desiree and I have run real hard for the kingdom of God. And I think that as a result of doing those things, we understand the value of community. And community is very important when you have family that's, 10 hours away and you have to drive to see them. It's very far. So 2019, our focus is community, and you're going to see a lot of different, we've done our annual calendar, and there are a lot of community-based things that are plugged in there, so be looking for that. And be praying about getting plugged into the Springs in different areas of service for 2019, because, you know, part of being a part of the community isn't just receiving, it's giving. And we're looking for people that are willing to give of themselves for the sake of the kingdom, to see the kingdom grow. Can I get an amen? Very good. And on a lighter note, I am going to do, I think this is fun. Whether you think it's fun or not, just placate me. I think it's fun. Ugly Christmas sweaters. Ugly Christmas sweaters. Now, before you bring it up, just leave that one right there. Just leave that one right there. Take off, eh? Okay. That's the only Canadian you'll hear from me today. But I am going to allow you to vote on which ugly sweater I should buy this year, and then I will wear it when I preach. And these are the three choices that we have, of course. And all of them are significant to me. In some way, shape, or form, they're significant to me, whether you realize it or not, but this one's pretty obvious. We have the Canada A sweater here, and then we've got the Santa punching the shark, which if anyone knows me, they understand this. And then last but not least, we have the Carlton, which truly is the ugliest sweater out there. And so this is how this is really clicking and ticking, isn't it? Can all of you hear this thing going crazy? If it keeps going crazy, I'll switch mics, hopefully. Oh, there it goes. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it by cheer, okay? And how you cheer, I'm going to say 1, 2, and 3. You'll cheer, of course. And then whichever one has the loudest cheer, that's the one that I'll purchase. Make it be number 2. Okay. So, ready to cheer. Number 1. Okay, it lost. All right. Number 2. And number 3. Ooh. That was close between 2 and 3. I think we're going to have to do that again. Are y'all ready? Number 2. Late to the party, but it's still good. All right. And number 3. Number 2 it is, people. Number two it is. The reason that Matt is coming out there and doing his little dance is because you have Matt to thank for that, because he sent me that. Because he knows that I have an unfounded terrified of sharks for whatever reason. They scare the fire out of me. And so he sent me a sweater of Santa punching a shark, which makes perfect sense. So, number 2 it is. Congratulate yourselves. That'll be on next week by the grace of God. Awesome. We're going to start, we're postponing our testimony service. We will come back to it after the holidays are done for just a little bit. But we're going to postpone it for a bit because I realize I have about 3 Sundays where we can actually talk about Christmas. And I know that Thanksgiving just happened, and I would have waited until next week, but I wanted to get all 3 in for the significance of the season and for what we're talking about. And so we're going to start a series today called The Cost of Christmas. The cost of Christmas. How many of you know Christmas can be expensive? Isn't it? It can be very, very expensive. Let me tell you how expensive it can be. I'm just going to call this person Young Jeff. Let me tell you a story. Young Jeff in the Toronto region of Canada on December 23rd got a call from his friend named Chris. And Chris said, "Jeff, do you want to come over to my house and play?" Because, I was 21 and that made sense. No. I was 8 years old, and he called me up and he said, "Hey, do you want to come over and hang out?" And I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, it's kind of that time of year. It's that time in season that I don't know if we can leave or not." And she said, "Yeah, go for it." Well, I stood up real quickly, got ready, went over to my friend Chris's house, never thought anything about it. What I didn't realize is that my mom was using floodlights to illuminate part of our tree. And back in the 80s, floodlights generated a lot of heat. And when I stood up, I knocked it on its face. And that floodlight stood there and burned into the carpet. And I had no idea. And I got a call. Could you imagine, 8 years old, you get a call from your mother while you're playing at your friend's house, which you think is a huge privilege because of the time of year that it is. And she says, "Jeffrey," because when you use the full name, that's when you know. If you get Jeffrey Scott, which is my middle name, then you just know, well, I'm dead. But if you get the Jeffrey, I'm in trouble. So I got the Jeffrey, like, "Jeffrey, do you know what you did?" And I was like, "There are about 20 things I did, but I don't know what I want to cop up to right now." What should I say here? So, it's kind of like when you get pulled over. "Do you know what you did?" "I don't know." And so I was like, "What did I do?" Which is the smartest. It's actually scriptural because, when God asked Jeremiah a question, Jeremiah said, "Oh, sovereign Lord, you know," which is the equivalent of, "Yeah, whatever you say." "I don't know, you know." And so I said, "I don't know what I do." And she said, "When you went over to Chris's house, you knocked over the light onto the carpet." And instantly I went, "I'm dead. It's over. I burned a hole in the carpet." None of the other brothers had done anything to that level yet, which means that I was going to be the example. So I said, "Oh, I didn't realize that." And she said, that carpet, to replace that carpet would be upwards of $2,000 to $3,000. And I went, "I'm 8. I don't know what that means." I have no concept of dollars. But I know that when she said that all I hear is I'm in trouble. That's all I hear. And so I said, "That's very expensive." But here's the thing that I love about this story. My mom says, well, "No, Jeffrey, I'm not going to get you in trouble today." I actually stopped listening after that moment. But she said, "Jeff, I'm not going to get you in trouble today because what you did was an accident. And as a result of it being an accident, we are now going to be able to claim replacing our whole 70s shag carpet that needed to go anyway on insurance because it was an accidental burn that happened. And they're going to replace the whole thing for the cost of our deductible, which is about $250. And I said, "You're welcome, Mom." "No, I didn't." "Yeah, I was 8. Give me a break. I was 8. And I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "I just wanted to call you to let you know how faithful God can be, even when he uses your mistakes to bring about blessings." You see, my actions made Christmas to be a possible costly thing, but love found a way to pay the price for me. Do you see? My actions brought about a costly thing, but love paid the way. So, I want to talk to you about that. Christmas has always been an expression of love, always and forever. And Christmas from the beginning came with a cost. There's the obvious cost, okay? The obvious cost is this, that God as the Word came into the earth into flesh and blood. See, Jesus wasn't created when he came into the earth. He existed from before time, because he created time. He is eternal. It's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. But before he became the Son in that regard, he was known as the Word. So God the Word coming to earth in the form of humanity as a baby. In one moment, I want you to think about this, and I'm sure that you probably have. I don't expect that I'm going to give you a ton of new revelation or information today, but I do want to emphasize a few things. Think about this. In one moment, the Word is enjoying the full benefit of who he has always been. He's in heaven. He's the one who created all things. When you look at John chapter 1, verse 1 and following, you see this. In the beginning was the Word, capital W, emphasizing a name. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. This is who Jesus is before incarnation. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. You see, the Word created everything. And it's through the command of the Father. Think about this, and maybe you've read it like this before, but if you look at Genesis chapter 1, you see the role that Jesus played as the Word. See, this is what happens in Genesis 1 when we have the account of creation. And God, being the Father, said, "Let there be light." He spoke what? He spoke. See, when he speaks, he sends the Word to accomplish that which he spoke. And so God the Father said, "Let there be light." And he looked at the Word, and the Word said, "That is a great idea. I'll be back in a second." And light happened. All of creation happened through the vehicle of God the Father speaking and the pre-incarnate Jesus causing creation to come into existence. He sent his Word to accomplish. This is one of the reasons that God's Word will not return to him, because it's not just spoken things, it's a person. It's a person. And the person of Jesus would never return to him void. Whatever God, throughout all of history and prehistory, everything that God spoke, Jesus accomplished. That's why it says, apart from him, nothing has been made that has been made. Because he is the agent of creation. The Father speaks and he accomplishes the goal. And I want you to think about that. In one moment, this is who Jesus is, pre-incarnate, as the Word. He's outside of space and time. He has zero limitations. There's nothing that could, the omnipresence, nothing has been affected in any way, shape, or form in his pre-incarnate state. And then, in the next moment, the Word became flesh and came into the world as a baby. You're hard-pressed to find anything that is more limited than a baby. They can't feed themselves. They can't clean themselves. They can't wash themselves. All they really know how to do is all of those things. Scream, cry, yell, whatever. Whatever it is to let you know, because they're dependent on you. Completely dependent on others for their existence. Affected by time. He had to wait to develop physically, to become a man. None of this was a part of the life of the Word. None of this was a part of it. He tied himself to a human body. It's not to say that he doesn't have the capability of being omnipresent. He's God. He can do what he wants. But as a man, he tied himself to a human body. Talk about a sacrifice. How would you like it that the speed of light was set by him and he moves faster? And then in the next minute, you're lucky to run a 12-second 100-meter dash. It must have felt so slow in comparison to what he was accustomed to and what he was used to. Came as a baby, limited himself, tied himself to humanity, was 100% God, but 100% man. That's a sacrifice. That's a cost. And you need to know, love was willing to pay that cost, not only for obedience to his Father, but to see you come into his family. There's always been a cost associated with Christmas. There's always been a cost. God paid the ultimate cost for us. Coming as a human being, in the form of a human being. Living through, this is what I love about Jesus. This is off topic. I'll get to the rest of this, but this is what I love about Jesus. He came in appearance as a man. He was 100% human, but 100% God. Do you realize that his hands never knew sin? Think about what our hands have done. Think about where our feet have led us. He never knew that. He lived the perfect life as a human being, never knowing sin. In fact, when he touched people that were sinful, they became holy. It's amazing. It's amazing. What a sacrifice he made to come. And he was willing to pay the cost in that and much more. That's the obvious one, but I want to talk about a few other costs this morning too. One being Mary's cost. Mary's story. All of us read the account dealing out of the Gospels. We're going to look at the account in Luke this morning, dealing with Mary. But we're all familiar with the story. We've read it how many times? Good night. But I want you to read it with eyes this morning of understanding the cost that she paid for the sake of playing her part in redemption's story. Look at Luke chapter 1, verse 26 and 20, Luke chapter 1, verse 26, 27. In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mama, 6 months, he's 6 months older than Jesus is. In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged, everyone say pledged, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. That's very important, because you need to understand that word pledged it's not just talking about being engaged according to our culture and understanding of being engaged. Pledged it carries the connotation of understanding betrothed, which basically is this. When you get engaged or you have an arranged marriage where you know that this is the person that you're going to be married to, once the engagement begins, that engagement can only be broken with a certificate of divorce. They're not married yet, but the preparation of the betrothal stage where you are pledged to be married to this person, they take that just as serious as marriage itself. We could learn a thing or two from the Jewish culture. And so when it says that the virgin, never knowing a man, the virgin is pledged to be married to Joseph, that is the equivalent of basically the ceremony hasn't happened yet, but in the eyes of everyone and in the eyes of the law, you're married to this person without the benefit of actually being married. And to break off that engagement means that you would have to give and issue a certificate of divorce, which you'll see in Joseph's story in just a few moments. I lay that down there for a reason and purpose. Okay. So they're pledged, stronger than our understanding of engagement. All right? Let's read on. Luke 1, verse 27. The virgin's name was Mary. It was actually Miriam, but in our culture, Mary. This is something you need to know about Mary. Mary is about 14 years old in this story. 14 years old. It says she could be anywhere from 12 to 14. I'm giving the benefit of 14. She's about 14 years old at the time of the account. Luke 1:28 through 33. The angel went to her, the 14-year-old Mary, betrothed to Joseph. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored." Number one, don't ever write off anyone because they're young as if they can't be used by God. And don't ever write off somebody that they're young, that they can't have a calling from God that they can actually answer in their teenage years. God doesn't tie himself to our culture. We tie ourselves to him. And so if he wants to commission a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 7-year-old, so be it. Let it happen. Jeremiah was 9 when he got his commission. Good night. So, anyway, long-term youth pastor, what can you expect? So, greetings you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you. Mary was greatly troubled at the words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus." Jesus means Savior or salvation. "He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." What? She's 14. And she just got this word. And I don't know about you. I just know how I would respond. I would just go, wait, what? What's going to happen now? I'm gonna get pregnant. I'm a virgin. This don't make no sense. Number one. Number two, the baby that I'm going to carry is going to be what I would understand to be the Messiah, and his kingdom will have no end. And he'll reign on the throne of King David from old. Talk about a lot to absorb in a little amount of time. Talk about getting hit. Boom. Just drop the hammer down of all this information. And people give her a hard time and what does she say? She's like, how can this be? I don't blame her. I don't blame her. Your baby will take the throne of David and have an eternal kingdom. Have a nice day. It's a lot to process. And we see in Luke 1:34, "How will this be?" Mary asked the angel, "since I am a virgin." Notice that it wasn't I don't believe this. It was I don't understand how this is possible. You see, here's the benefit of going to someone that is young. They don't have angst in their life that's going to cause them to not believe that it's possible. They still have an open heart to say, I just don't understand, but help me to understand and I'll go with it. There's a reason that God commands and calls us to come into his kingdom like to love like you've never been hurt before. To love like you have all of the history of everything that you've been through, all the baggage, all the wounds, all the stuff that's happened, doesn't carry into your present but is left in history. Do you realize that this is really a huge part of what the Bible instructs over and over and over for us? To leave history behind. That's why he casts our sins into the sea of... God can't forget. How can he forget? He has a perfect mind. Think about it. But he chooses. I'm not going to dwell on that because I'm living in the present. I'm living in the here and now. I'm living right here and now. We could learn a lot from that. We could take a lot away from that. How will this be? Since I am a virgin. Luke 1:35-37 says, "The angel answered, the Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age." See, there's a confirmation there because she knew that Elizabeth was pregnant. Anyway, I'll leave that alone. "And she who said to the... let me back up. In her old age, and she who said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month, for no word from God will ever fail." And Mary replies and says this, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled." Think about that. She just got this massive amount of historical significant information placed in her lap. She asked one question and then said yes. One question and then said yes. I would ask for essays of explanation before I pledged in, and I would probably say something to the effect of, "Let me pray about that." She asked one question, and it was just a point of clarification, and then said, "All right, I'm in." Oh man, no thought, no consider. Listen, We don't know. She's 14, but she's a savvy 14, Bubba. An angel showed up to her, and she was like, hey. An angel shows up to us, and I don't even want to speculate what might happen. It's a scary experience. It's a scary experience. And here's what we need to know. And with that agreement, her yes to the plan of God, 14-year-old Mary chose to endure these things in her life. Number one, the disbelief of those who thought she had cheated on her future husband. Rumors started going, and talk started happening. And they all started saying, oh, she cheated on Joseph. Oh, she did. There's no doubt. If she's pregnant, because in our world, have you ever seen anyone have a baby without knowing a man? It doesn't usually happen that way. And so everyone looks. They don't understand the angel visitation. They don't understand the words. They don't understand the instruction that she's had. They don't understand the whole conversation that she's had with an angelic being that took place. All they know is she's pregnant, and it's not Joseph's kid. And so she gets labeled by society. You're a cheater. The social stigma of being pregnant out of wedlock. It was a big deal back in that day. The rumors and gossip spread about the scandal of being pregnant. The conjecture of what she was guilty of. Do you know that conjecture actually never went away? And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, hopefully, if I can get to it. You'll see what I mean. Mary paid a cost for Christmas. She paid a big cost. Her yes to God brought about all kinds of misunderstandings to her life, all kinds of judgment from people that looked at her because of her yes to the Lord, and they didn't understand what transpired between her and God. People judged her immensely in their society. There's a cost to pay. How many of you like people gossiping about you? How many of you like people talking poorly of you? How many of you just love it when someone says something that is inaccurate about you because they don't know the whole story? This is what she's 14. And this is what she's enduring. She bore judgment and a social stigma and label for something she did not do, simply for saying yes to God's plan. So why say yes? Why pay the cost? I mean, why? It's simple. She loved God. She loved God, and God knew that that girl would love that baby more than anybody else. And God knew that that girl, 14 years old, lined up in history. What is it? In the family line. Genealogy, there it is. In the family line, to be able to match up to be a descendant of David on both sides, so that her son could be the rightful throne bearer of David. She loved them. Love is always willing to pay the cost. And oftentimes there is a cost for love. And love is always worth the cost, so Mary said yes. Let's talk briefly. Well, before I go there, let me give you an application. This may be as far as we get. I want to talk to you about Joseph, because it's a really cool story too. For all who have gone through false accusations and rumors because you followed Jesus. Do I have any of those people in here this morning? Would you raise your hand real quick? Yeah. Yeah. For all who have gone through the accusation and the rumor mill, because you said yes to Jesus, the rumors, the misunderstandings of what truly happened in the story, no one knows, they don't know, but they're still going to talk about you. You're in good company. If it happened to God's mom, if it happened to Jesus' mom, you're in good company. Instead of focusing on the injustice you've endured, choose, everyone say choose. Choose to follow or to focus on the love you showed that brought about the lies and rumors. See, there's a good chance that you did something really good that earned you a really bad reputation. There's a good chance that you did something really right, following the Lord, that nobody understood, and they twisted it to be something that was really wrong. And oftentimes what happens inside of us is we have a tendency to focus on the injustice that's been done to us. Well, I want to encourage you this morning to focus on the love that you express to that person, those people, that situation, whatever it may be, and say, they were worth the cost. They were worth the cost. Because I see their lives are better because of my input into them, because I said yes to God. Can you imagine if Mary didn't say yes? Can you imagine how awkward that would have been? I'm sorry, but in my comedy mind, I think, like, Gabriel's like, you'll be with child. No. I didn't expect that. Thank God that she said yes. Thank God that she said yes. I think that's as far as we're going to get today. Next week, I want to talk to you about Joseph's story. And we'll go from there. I don't want to keep you too long. I want to let you out maybe a little early even. How about that? A preacher ended early. Somebody's clapping. So don't worry about the song. We're not going to do an altar time. I'm just going to dismiss them. If you want to play, that's fine. Think about the cost that Mary was willing to pay for Christmas. And I want to think about the cost that you pay each and every day in your lives when you go out into the world. Are you willing to be misunderstood for the sake of the kingdom? Are you willing to follow Jesus and have your yes be stronger than any opposition that comes against you? This is the challenge that was laid to a 14-year-old girl. And I want to lay that challenge to you. Most of the people who do great things for the kingdom are highly misunderstood and often talked about. I say that we can be those people. But in the process of doing that, let's focus on the love that we're giving and the cost of love and say, okay, they're saying their stuff.